this video, we will be adding a scoreboard which increases the score each time a player successfully avoids the boulder. Now the first thing we would like to do is getting our score to be visible on the screen. So therefore I will go into my hierarchy and I will right click and I will go to UI and I will create a text element. I will change the name of this text element to be score text. If you get a pop-up saying something with import TMP essentials, just import the TMP essentials and then you can close out the TMP importer. You're not able to see this on your scene screen right now, but if you go into your game view, you can see, for me at least, it's right here in the left bottom corner. It might be placed elsewhere for you. The reason we can't see this in our scene view right now is if we highlight the canvas object in our hierarchy and then press F to frame it, the canvas is actually much larger than our game scene. The game scene is this small square you can see in the bottom left corner. So firstly, let's place the score text where we want it. I would like to keep it in the left top corner. So I will go to my score text element and here you can see the square with kind of a crosshair on it. We open this and we would like to place it in the left corner, but I would also like to set the pivot and the position. So therefore I hold down Shift and hold down Alt. And then when I click here in the top left corner, it will set the text to be in the top left corner. So let's try to change this new text into our score. Now we want to go into a project tab and we want to go to our scripts folder and we will create a new mono behavior script and we will call it ScoreManager. First off, I will delete the start and update methods as we won't be needing these. And now for the first time in this series, we will actually be using our usings. So think of our usings as kind of our tools in our toolbox. So now we have the using Unity Engine. This unlocks the Unity Engine tools, but we will also like to access our TM Pro text tools. So we will type using TM Pro. So the first thing we would like to do in our script is access the text element. We would want to set this in the inspector. Therefore, we will use the serialize field, and this will be of the type TMP text, and I'll just call it score text. Then I would like to set my score to something. Well, what do we need for a score? We would need a number. So therefore, we will create an integer. I will name it score, and I will set it to 0, as our score will normally start at 0. And now we need a method for adding to this score. I will create a public method, and it will be named add score. So what do we want to do in add score? Well, of course, we want to add to our score. You can add as many as you like. I'll just add 1 to my score. So therefore, I'll type the shorthand for that, which is score ++. Now we're adding to a score, but we're actually not doing anything to change the text. We can change the text by accessing our score text variable, and we can use the method called setText. As you can see, it takes in a string. For now, I'll just set it to score. And that is it for the script for now. I will reveal that something is missing, but we will add that at a later point. That's for a challenge later in the video. So right now we've added most of what is needed in this script, but we're actually not calling the add score method. We don't want to call this in our score manager as it does not know when actually to add a score. Therefore, we will need to do this in a different script. So have a think about when do we actually want to add to our score. Well, we would like to do this whenever the player successfully avoids the boulder, which means that when our boulder goes off the screen and needs to respawn, that's when we want to add to our score. So it would make sense for us to go into our boulder behavior script, and somehow in our respawn boulder, we would like to add to our score. Normally, when you want to get a component, we would use the getComponent method, but since this component is not on the game object that this script is attached to, which is the boulder, then we can't use the getComponent. So that's why we want to access an external game object. So let's say we wanted to access our player controller for some reason. Well, we would have to add a field. Let's just add a private player controller. Let's just name it player controller. And then in the start method, we would set our player controller to be equal to object.find first object by type. We would now need to specify the type, which is player controller. And then we would end with parentheses and semicolon.
And what this does is that it returns the first active loaded game object that matches the specified type. So the first game object which has this component on it. I will leave a link for the Unity documentation in the description.
And now we can access the methods of the player controller. So we could go to a respawn boulder method, player controller, use the period sign for extensions, and now we can access all the methods which our player controller contains. Of course, we do not want to use the player controller, so that's why the next challenge for you is, instead of adding and calling the methods of our player controller, instead try to access the ScoreManager and call the method add score. I'll give you a quick sec to pause the video, and then you can come back to see my solution after giving it a good go. So first off, as we did with our player controller, instead we will be adding a private score manager. I'll just call this score manager as well. And now we need to go to a start method and set the score manager to object.find first object by type. Which type would we like to find? We would like to find our score manager. And of course the parentheses and semicolon to end the line. Now we can go into a respawn boulder. Be careful with not calling the score method out here outside our if statement. We only want to call it each time our boulder needs to respawn. So therefore we will call it inside the if statement by using ScoreManager add score. We will save the script.
Notice that we're calling the find first object by type in our start method. That's because the start method is only called once. We could do it in our respawn boulder method and that would work the same way, but then the method would be called each time a boulder respawned. What the method essentially does is it scans our entire hierarchy in the scene we're in until it finds a game object with the score manager component on it. If we were to do that continuously, then that could really decrease the performance of our game. So that's why we're making sure that it's only called once.
And then the last thing we need before we run our game, we will need to go to our canvas object and we will attach the score manager script as a component. You can see text in a variable called score text of the type TMP text. Therefore we will drag our score text here into this field. So now when we run our game and avoid the boulder, the text will change. But it's changing the text to score and it is actually increasing our score, but we can't see our score right now. So now comes the next challenge for you. Instead of just setting the text to being score, we would like to show our actual score. Again, pause the video, give this a good go, and then you can come back to see my solution. So to change this, I will just add a colon here and then spacing to make sure we get spacing between score and our actual score. And I'll just use the plus sign outside of the quotation marks. And I will add our score. So when that's done compiling, we can again try to run our game. And you can see now it has score 1, and each time the boulder respawns, our score will increase by 1. The last thing I want to do here is change the score text to just show our score as 0 when we start the game, so it doesn't just show new text. And yeah, this looks pretty good. So now we've successfully added our scoreboard to our game. But you might have noticed the problem is that when the player is destroyed, the game continues and the score continues to be increased each time the boulder respawns. That's not what we want. Here we would like to pause our game and add some kind of game over menu and an option to restart the game. So that's what we'll be adding in the next episode of the series. If this video helped you out, please consider leaving a like or a comment, as this helps me out massively, and subscribe for more content. Thank you for watching.